Greetings from my channel again. Did you know that an astounding 85% of guys don't identify the tiny clues that indicate adultery in their partnerships are unexpected, yet it's the unpleasant truth for the majority of males. Just don't notice the little things yet, strong indicators that someone is cheating. However, I'm here to fix that, so don't worry. We're going to examine today the psychology underlying these symptoms and the unspoken expressions that women employ when, by the conclusion of it, they are being unfaithful. After watching this video, you'll know to defend yourself and keep your relationship before we start. Yet, if you're prepared, let me remind you to genuinely comprehend the female psyche and change the way you deal with love. And make careful you hit that in relationships. Full of advice that could not only preserve your relationship whilst assisting you create deeper, more robust connections in the "let's get started, gentlemen" on the future. Listen carefully, because what I'm next disclosure could unlock some of the most profound and puzzling mysteries of the behavior of women. The fact is that women are capable of mastering hiding their actual emotions and intentions, particularly with relation to infidelity. But what are their methods? Indications you might be missing. Perhaps you've heard the adage that women are professionals at concealing things, and it's not only a fallacy. In reality, women are frequently far more deft and calculated than males. When it comes to infidelity, many guys may leave indicators for obvious, when their women who are unfaithful are typically more thoughtful, even transforming decep into an art form. But the good news is that I'm going to assist you in finding those concealed indications. I'll be sharing 6 important expressions that ladies frequently utilize when they're cheating, expressions that most men overlook. These aren't just idle words at all. They have underlying meanings that indicate physical and emotional distance, but earlier than the first phrase. Think about this. What if your significant other has previously mentioned a few of these points? What? Whether her words and deeds have been stating something to you all along, and you just haven't become aware of this information, might make the distinction between living a deception and discovering a reality that might shift anything. So let's get started right now. Ado, enter, and examine the opening phrase. Number 1. So-and-so really gets me. When your significant other starts bringing up another person, particularly in a praising or loving light, brushing is simple. At first it seems innocuous because everyone has people who encourage them and help them understanding. But what if there's deeper than the surface? If she states, "I comprehend stuff like so-and-so," so well that it can appear to be a harmless observation, a straightforward recognition of another person's compassion, even if sometimes words can convey a message. A lot deeper, this statement might suggest that she is starting to establish an emotional relationship with this individual that occasionally comes before any physical. You see, emotional bonds and attraction frequently possess a much more nuanced and sly method of infidelity. Seeping in doesn't always show up as physical touch. It may start with the sensation of being genuinely comprehended by another, someone who offers consolation and relationship, in which you might no longer imagine this situation with your partner. Often discusses a colleague, first making casual reference to them, possibly enhancing their perception of comedy or the way they assisted her with a project. These remarks eventually turn into more often, and the tone changes to one of admiration. She begins to contrast you with, "This individual is stating stuff such as, so and so gets me far more effectively than you do." May initially appear innocent, but as these comments start to appear often, you start to feel more something that must not be disregarded. The reality is that emotional infidelity may as harmful as outright treachery. When your significant other begins to develop a strong, meaningful relationship with someone outside of your partnership, it's crucial to inquire. Tell yourself what's actually going on here. Don't ignore these subtle indicators as gentle teasing or straightforward companionship. When someone feels a strong emotional attachment to, it could be the starting step for someone else, towards something even more hazardous and far more agonizing than you may think. Pay attention to these subtle cues. Gentlemen, the gradual accumulation of admiration may serve as a prelude to a more in-depth separation that could cause the foundation to tremble of your partnership. You can trust instincts, and don't overlook anything if this doesn't feel quite right. Issue that speaks to you. Demonstrate your support by leaving a comment, if not a straightforward like button click would be enormously. Thank you very much, number 2. I am going out with some people, so don't worry. Friends initially look at this statement, may appear to be a perfectly innocent natural. We all require time to cultivate our personal connections, and a sound relationship makes room for such individual relationships. But when you look more closely, this apparently innocuous justification can occasionally conceal something far more. When someone is hiding, they are sneaky. Infidelity, they frequently depend on may refer to regular lies as justifications for appear completely believable at first glance, but are intended to conceal actions that would otherwise increase doubts. Don't worry, I'm just leaving. Going out with pals could seem like nothing more than a straightforward declaration of independence, but be mindful of the regularity of this justification and any discrepancies in the information your partner supplies. If this expression turns into increasingly prevalent, or if the tales surrounding these excursions get more difficult and hazy to adhere to, it's time to have faith in your instincts and have a closer look at this situation where your spouse has consistently spent time with her pals without issue, simply informs you that she is leaving for dinner with them once more. Initially, this doesn't cause any concerns, but over time continues. You observe that it occurs more frequently, with her answers growing more casual when you inquire about her identity meeting, but her response is ambiguous, just the girls, but no names or any details. She gets more and more engrossed in her texting someone on the phone with a degree of secrecy that doesn't seem appropriate. These subtle alterations are not arbitrary. They frequently indicate that her statements don't fairly correspond with her actions. When someone is attempting to hide these minor, everyday lies, our infidelity become their shield as they reveal more, the more they want to divert your attention. Focus away from the actual situation. Now is the time for you to pay attention to the statements made if her excursions are increasing in frequency and her explanations that are harder to find. Don't let your suspicions fade into the backdrop. Relationships are built on trust, on openness, and when unexpected patterns appear, take note of such silent alterations that they may be attempting to inform you of something you haven't yet. I need more. I'm ready to hear number 3. First, some room for myself. This phrase may appear complete at first look. A straightforward and acceptable request for we all occasionally want for our own place. After all, isn't space necessary for time, personal development and contemplation? But this is where the water gets muddy. As a result of a desire for maintaining personal space can be beneficial in any relationship, it may also conceal something deeper, something more disturbing. When your significant other indicates that they need more space, could be more than just an appeal for being alone, could be an effort to create a wall separating you two, a subtly sneaky method of establishing distance in a formally intimate relationship. And although a good connection does need to strike a balance between unity and being independent, requires awareness of the slight change that could take place when space transforms into something completely different. Consider whether she needs space, develops into extended periods of time separate, or if she starts to back off, these could be indications that, although it's not unusual, something is amiss. Someone to want to spend some time alone themselves. But when the frequency of that time apart increases and inexplicable, it's important to look at the detailed explanations for it. Take a look at this. For instance, she begins to stay out later, frequently, possibly even whole weekends without initially giving specific justifications. You can dismiss it, thinking it's just a necessity for personal downtime, but eventually the lack of intensifies and it gets more difficult to maintain emotional detachment. Disregarding communication slows her down, looks for your company just like she used to. The warning bells should sound at this point. Begin calling. A connection is based on physical, emotional, and when that bond starts to weaken, it's time to examine her space more thoroughly. Turns into a cover to get away from you, or you should spend more time with someone else. Are no longer only observing the necessity for isolation, but the disintegration of something more profound in these times. It's need to stop and consider what's actually occurring here when the need for room stops being a breath and instead becomes a barrier. Fresh air. It's time to make the payment. Pay attention to the lack of intimacy communicates more effectively than words ever could. If this subject appeals to you, demonstrate your support by leaving a comment. If not, a straightforward like button click would be enormously. Thank you very much. Number 4. I'm using my late shift tonight as an excuse. It is as old as time to work late tonight. It is a classic in and of itself. Nearly universally approved justification for missing work is something we all encounter, after all. Meeting deadlines and eventually a portion of modern life, which makes working at the office simple cover for people who want to give an explanation their extended absences. But when this justification turns into a habit, something more profound might, under the surface, be brewing. If your partner is unexpectedly working later hours, more frequently than usual, or taking on more initiatives with little and no warning, it's time to examine work more closely. Be a practical shield, but the pattern has method of answering the question and exposing the truth is more than just whether she's working late. How frequently she makes this explanation and way she responds when you inquire about it. Is she defensive when you ask her about her work? Is she clear and consistent explanations, or do they start to get disorganized when work is being used as a cover by someone for? Additionally, the discrepancies in their narrative may be nuanced, but they are there, silently pleading for attention. Maybe she gets aloof, or ATIV, that was not revealed when she asserts be working gradually if work comes up unexpectedly. Turns into a common justification for her absences that make you feel like it's time to delve, stranger than a companion. Deeper, pay great attention to her responses when you inquire about her schedule. Does she hesitate to give specifics? Are her justifications unconvinced, or do they leave you wondering more than responses that a relationship depends on trust? And when that confidence is eroded by avoidances or contradictions, indicate that there is a mistake in this. At times, you're not merely wondering about the legitimacy of your justification challenging the bond's foundation. You both trust your gut feelings. If anything seems strange, it most likely is. Ignoring the warning flags in partnerships can frequently be more harmful than facing the fifth truth. I believe we need some time apart. This phrase is frequently hidden in the appearance of reason could be a warning indication that Ben is being stirred by something more profound. Underneath the surface, in wholesome connections, reversing course to regrouping and reflecting can occasionally be an essential action, yet when the suggestion is unclear conversation, or when it appears to. Suddenly, it could not just be about need room instead. It might be an effort to establish distance without the weight of dedication or responsibility when your spouse abruptly recommends taking some time apart. It's important to stop and consider is this request a considerate one? Request for reflection, or is it in reality as a means of exploration and escape something that is not contained within the friendship, without the burden of your presence, without openness or clarity? Talk about the problems in your relationship that this expression may conceal with ease. An urge to go for someone or something otherwise, without you ever being the better if this recommendation comes up surprisingly, with no preceding indications of issue or discussion regarding your shared future. It's necessary to delve further. While sometimes space can be healthy, the point of it is what most important is that she is sincerely looking for solitude to consider the partnership. Or is this the start of a peaceful departure? A method to gauge the potential of potentially without independence. Your connections are based on relationship trust and the bravery to face obstacles together. When that bond begins to weaken as space starts to replace the time spent together, it's not longer just because of the distance between them. About the implications of that period for the future, if you believe the recommendation is not based on introspection, but rather on avoidance, pay great attention to what is not said. The most authentic form of message time separation should never serve as a justification for slipping away without returning, unless the distance obviously marks the start of an irreversible "you deserve the sixth separation." When a lady is superior to me declares, "You deserve someone," the phrase "better than me" is rarely used. Prepared casually, it is frequently laden with convey a sense of emotional burden and remorse. On the surface, regret or even sadness could seem self-deprecating, expression that indicates she's struggling with her alleged shortcomings. Yet, below the surface, this term might act as a subliminal preamble to anything deeper, something more sinister. It's how she, getting you ready for the potential separation, lessens the impact of what this assertion might be false in the future, merely regarding her sentiments of being unworthy. Yet it can also be a cunning deflection through conversational focus on her shortcomings or faults that she tries to hide away from the actual problem at hand. The relationship rifts itself in certain cases. This expression is a silent, almost unconscious confession, implies something has already disappeared, possibly be a veiled recognition of her involvement, either physical or emotional, with someone else, or even having an affair with, may convince herself that if she can, you think that she's the bad one, sufficient to in some way excuse her behavior. As if the harm is caused by her shortcomings. Her cause isn't as important, but what this expression is unable to conceal, the agonizing reality that her actions are damaging the very relationship with you. Explain that she is deeply aware of her conscience. She is aware of the effects of her decisions, and by stating that she's saying that she deserves someone better. The sadness of being aware that she has failed you in ways that she is unable to reverse. Word does more than simply represent her doubt about oneself, serves as a sharp reminder that we occasionally try to absolve, eliminating our own guilt by assigning blame to people, even if it means violating the very heart that put its faith in us. Relationships. Comprehending these phrases are more than merely listening phrases. It's about focusing on the deep urn that frequently goes unnoticed. Unnoticed, these words have greater significance than you might discover. They're subtle, indicates covert pleas for assistance, or even listening to silent admissions of guilt. With caution, understanding, and compassion, be the distinction between maintaining something you value or observing it disappearing before you even comprehend what's occurring. Believe in your instincts, whispers that there's a problem. It's your intuition. Don't disregard it. attempting to lead you to the truth. The indicators point you in the direction of clarity. Simply open your eyes and if this speaks to you, I would love to see them. If you sense the glimmer of, make sure to reach that recognition. Click the subscribe button to become a part of this community, where we examine the intricacies in detail of affection and comprehension in relationships, the complex, lovely mystery of the I'd like to know what you think female mind. Share your experiences in the remarks below. As we're all together, we are navigating this adventure, learning, developing and encouraging one another together. We can turn around at any point these revelations into effective measures. Let's make the most of this occasion, the beginning of a more profound comprehension and a closer bond